Alright, so let's discuss the Cervantes versus Talim neutral game, which I personally love this matchup. I love playing this matchup as both characters, as someone who mained Talim and now main Cervy, although that's kind of questionable at this point. I haven't played either character in a while. I find this matchup very fun, and the neutral is very interesting. It's not as one note as you would think it would be. Most people would probably look at this matchup and think, well, Cervy definitely wins this neutral game. And it's true, his neutral game is stronger. In terms of winning the safe horizontal game, Cervy absolutely wins. But in terms of vertical ranges, they're actually pretty similar. And that's where I think this matchup gets kind of interesting. So I kind of want to discuss this matchup and how I would approach basically fighting myself. Now, obviously, how I play these characters is kind of my own thing. Everyone plays a little bit differently, and always you play against the player that you're going against. But this is going to be a little experiment in me trying to counter myself and what I would generally do to solve my own Talim in terms of dealing with this matchup, which I think will be an interesting experiment, if nothing else. So obviously, to start off, I generally play every match because I'm more of a defensive player. I play every match defensive. So as Talim, I would actually start this match hoping that I don't have to fight to get in. Now, as a Cervy, certain Cervy players will just kind of run into your face. And at this point, this discussion's over. Neutral's over. You chose to go range 0, which in my opinion as a Talim player, that's a victory for me. I no longer have to fight to get in. This is a victory for me. Now, if you're a really good player, obviously you can sit in range 0 all day. It doesn't matter if it's to your favor or not. But I would say from a consistency standpoint, there's no reason not to get free damage because Talim does have to fight to get in. But, so that's that circumstance out of the way. If you choose to just go offensive, you can do so. If you have the right reads on your opponent, you can absolutely do that. And of course, sometimes you should just go in. But we're going to talk about what happens if you choose to sort of play into Talim instead of making Talim play into you. So you want to play neutral, but maybe you're just not quite there yet. You don't know your ranges. You're letting Talim kind of toy with you in a way that she shouldn't be able to do. Like, Cervy's movement is better, and Cervy's movement is what dictates the pace of this match and how the neutral plays out. But if you're not quite there yet, you're going to end up losing to Talim in neutral and in a way that's going to seem very punishing. So let's actually start from this perspective. You're a Cervy who's trying to get in. Like, you're trying to get in range to keep her out, which sounds kind of weird, but people will do this. Instead of just waiting for Talim to come to you, you kind of step into her range and try and get into A6 range and things like that. So A6, that's going to be the first thing that you're going to utilize more often than not. You're going to try an A6. It's your safest option, works against everything that she's going to do because it's a high mid. It's a really good, safe button that gives you +6. You definitely want to be laying this whenever you can. But if you're a Cervy and you're running in and the Talim's moving backwards, she's going side to side. Here's the thing. If I get to play defensive Talim and I can bait you into doing an A6 and whiffing, this matchup is already hugely in my favor because of a particular thing that makes this very interesting. So, whiff, whiff. This is the interesting dynamic of this matchup. 6B and A6 fight for the exact same range. While one is horizontal and one is not punishable, the other is much higher damage on counter hit, but punishable. And it's an interesting dynamic. But the more interesting thing here is if you whiff an A6, which I think exact A6 whiff range is like, yeah, like right there. If you go right here, I don't know how many other Talims know this. Oh, shit. I don't know how many Talims know this. I know this because I play both characters. But the exact distance of a whiffed A6 is the exact distance this lethal hits. Which makes playing with your safest tool, which would be A6, way more risky. Again, I don't see any other Talim utilize that knowledge. I don't even know if they know it's a thing. But I do this all the time against Cervys because it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage for one whiffed move, and your safest move at that. So in this instance, if you're not quite up to knowing your ranges and you're not playing quite as well as you should, like this is a lower tier Cervy running into this Talim and you're playing into Talim's space, and not getting your range, and she backsteps this. You step into A6, she backsteps. You take a ton of damage as a result. And that frightens you, but now Talim has the lead, and Talim can continue to make you play into her, which is a problem. Now, obviously, a better Cervy would know his range. He wouldn't press A6 unless he knew he was going to hit, which is the smarter thing. But if you're not a good Cervy, what you might end up doing is, okay, well, A6 was just a little too short. What are you going to default to next? You're probably going to start defaulting to things like 66B, or 66A, 66B. Slightly longer range than A6. A little less safe. You can duck the 66A, and the 66B is punishable. A little bit more unsafe to be doing those kind of moves. But they also have a key fundamental problem. And even if you do like 66K, which is a safe approach tool, all of these tools have one key problem. They're linear and they move you forward. And as we said before, A6 and 6B fight for the same range. If you start approaching with attacks, you're going to start getting counter hit by 6BB. Or just 6BK if she wants to do the safe variant, because 6BK is safe on block. That's still a bad situation to be in. Now she's back turned, which is one of her strongest places to be, and she's already in, and she's did like 43 damage to you. This is absolutely a win for her in every way, and you don't want to play into that. You want to play. This entire circumstance was you basically being a bad Cervy. You know, you're not playing your ranges correctly because you're playing into her space and allowing her to actually just move backwards. And play neutral? Talim's not allowed to play neutral. You need to stop her from being able to play it. You want her to play into your range. So that whole circumstance was basically you not knowing your ranges well enough. But Cervy's movement allows him to play this game better than Talim in terms of neutral. Your movement dictates that she has to approach you. You have faster movement, you have better movement. At the end of the day, it's safer and easier for you to get a little bit of damage and then back up and start your game from there. And force her to come to you. And in this instance, now we shift over to what do I do as Talim? What do I do as Talim in neutral if he's not going to allow me to just get in? Well, I want to get in. Now we're at the situation where Talim needs to get in. She needs to get to range 0 so she can start her game. The first tool that most Talims are going to end up using in this situation, because it's one of her safest and easiest approach tools, is going to be 66A. 66A is a very fast, decent ranged, and decent advantage high move. The high is the part that's key here. The problem with A6 or 66A is that you come with the risk of being, if you start just being linear with this, that's a 2A plus B. If you start going just directly towards Cervantes, 2A plus B is a free lethal. But on top of that, as Cervy in this matchup, you have to understand from these ranges, Talim has no threatening mids. She has no horizontal mids that she can hit you with that are safe in any regard. So at this range, you should be stepping Talim pretty much always, unless she has super. Just be stepping Talim at these ranges, and specifically, you want to be stepping towards the screen. If you know that Talim is trying to do 66A a lot, you want to step towards the screen, because the moment that you hit guard, you're immediately going to crouch. So if Talim starts running at you and doing 66A, if you're stepping towards the screen, the moment you see her come towards you, you can just crouch. Even if you're just doing a gateway run, just crouch while rising A. So that's the first part of this phase. You've now conditioned her. You've conditioned her to say, okay, I'm going to duck your 66A. What does Talim do now? Well, if you're constantly stepping her and you're at a distance like this, the only way for her to really stop you from stepping is to do the next thing that you're going to see a Talim do is she's going to do this. Oops. She's going to run up to 2A. Good option. It's a good option. It's a really good mid. It's both the tech crouch and a tech jump later on in the frames. It's an incredibly good move. But against Cervy, that's 40 damage. That's 40 damage. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage to be taking for a mid. And this is the really scary part for Talim, is you can step her freely from this range. In order for her to stop you from stepping at this range, she has to do a risky move. And if you condition her to constantly go for that move because you're ducking the 6-6As, and then you condition her to know that you're going to punish the 2-2A every single time, well, Talim's going to run into a bit of a problem. What's going to happen at this point in the game? Well, now she's going to think, well, I can't stop him from stepping with that move. That's too risky. I'm taking 40 damage every time. I don't really have any other mids. She doesn't have any other mids that are going to hit you. So what's she going to do? Walk forward block. Maybe walk forward 2A. Small buttons. Problem here. She's being incredibly linear. At this point, if she's doing like 6-6A and 2-2A, she could be moving these directions at the same time if she's doing that. But if she's going to start being extra safe and just walk forward block, well, I think Anders would tell you best. This is the part where you start throwing out throws. You start throwing out 2A plus Bs. She is now committed to a linear game. And a linear game is where Cervy can start doing everything that he wants. 2A plus Bs. You can start doing K2s on her run-in. You can do whatever you want. Start throwing her. If you start ducking the throws, start going for 3Bs, and you're gonna win out on damage here every time. And at this point, Talim's a little mind fucked. She doesn't know exactly what to do at this point, and this is why this neutral is so interesting, because it's just, you can condition the Talim so strongly. And at this point, this is what I would consider to be the win condition. I personally feel if you can get Talim to start walk forward blocking, walk forward 2As to stop your movement, just doing small things, if you can get Talim to play small, you win this matchup. You win the neutral. At this point, Talim is just a sitting duck. You can just play super safe too. She's walking in your range, just A6 her. She can't do anything about it. Because if she's walking into it, she's not going to whiff. And what happens? What happens to nothing. Nothing's going to happen. You're fine. It's a safe move. This is the victory condition, in my personal opinion, in this matchup. Get the Talim to play a straightforward linear game. Get her to start walk forward blocking. And in my opinion, you win the matchup. And this is my personal analysis. There are other tools that Talim has in neutral. She can do 4-4B and things like that. But for the most part, those moves, again, just completely stoppable by stepping. And what can she do to stop you from stepping? Throw this out. Again, it's a highly reactable high. And again, step towards the screen. Towards the screen. She can't do anything to stop you from doing that, other than walk forward and do safe moves. She has to play small caliber to get in. Because 6BB actually hits some 8-way runs, which is kind of silly. But you can 8-way run her. I mean, she can't really stop her from doing so. And if you see her start to move forward, you can crouch most of her options from that point. It's just such an interesting match. I love watching, because I've seen this exact circumstance pan out so many times, both from myself and from watching this matchup. Even from people who don't know this matchup that well, they inevitably start to do these exact things to deal with this matchup, and I just find it so interesting every single time. It's supremely fascinating. I love diagnosing how a neutral game progresses, and this is something that I've seen pretty much every single time, and there's not a whole lot of other things that the Talim player can do. I do think 4-4B is a good option, but she doesn't have any other mids to stop you. Should we gonna run in with this? She can't do that. Horizontal mids are not something that she possesses a lot of. She can run forward and do like 4-4K, but again, it's completely linear if you're stepping. If you're stepping, it shouldn't hit you. There you go. It's just very interesting. But I guess I don't have that much else to say. I just wanted to kind of divulge how this matchup would go down up until the neutral game is solved, which at this point I would consider the neutral solved. Obviously this is going to go back and forth a little bit. You're not always going to have the right read, but I think in general the risk reward here is in Cervy's favor once you get to this point.